Russian President Vladimir Putin is holding talks with his Iranian counterpart, Ebrahim Raisi, in Moscow as part of a group of meetings focused on the Middle East. Russia and Iran's growing military cooperation are expected to be discussed, as well as Moscow's war in Ukraine and the Israel-Hamas conflict. The meeting comes after the Russian leader visited the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, where he held talks on the further cooperation on oil prices. Let's examine this with Velina Tchakarova, who is a senior advisor at the Austrian Institute for European Security Policy. She joins us from Vienna, and you're very welcome. Now, Mr. Putin's talks with Iran's Ebrahim Raisi, they focused on Israel's conflict with Hamas. But last time they met, Putin was lobbying for support for his invasion of Ukraine. Is that conflict also a focus of Russia's diplomatic push?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And in fact, Russia relies on the Iranian military aid, mostly coming in the form of ammunition, drones, of course. And there are even speculations that ballistic missiles could be the next step.
Right. And so as far as Mr. Putin and the Middle East go, we saw him jaunting around in the last day or so. What's he trying to achieve there?
Well, the relationship between Iran and Russia is deeply rooted and is, of course, geopolitically also formed, given the overlapping interests in the region and beyond. Of course, when I say beyond, I mean mostly the U.S. position on many issues, not only on the two ongoing military conflicts in Eastern Europe and in the Middle East. And here, of course, what they also coordinated was the help for the Syrian President Assad. So a lot is going on also when it comes to the future membership of Iran in various regional formats under the guidance of Russia or with the coordination of Russia. Think of the membership of the upcoming membership of Iran also in BRICS starting in next year.
Right.
And in this year, of course, it was also the Shanghai Cooperation Organization.
Right. So they have lots of interests in common. Is it sensible to call them allies?
Yes, it is sensible to call them regional allies, even though that they have, of course, also certain conflicting interests, for instance, in the energy sector, because both Iran and Russia sought for a very long period, in fact, to supply actually the old continent, Europe. And we know for a fact that Iran has been under sanctions for a very, very long time, and now Russia is in the same bloc. So both can also learn actually from this experience that Iran had with the American sanctions in the energy sector. So mostly it is a regional alliance, and it is, as I said, on the one hand, actually meant to tackle the U.S. geopolitical interests around the globe. And it is stretching over several continents, even reaching to the Latin American continent. But on the other hand, of course, it is mostly also about coordinating actions, measures in the Middle East and in Europe.
Yeah, of course. And as Mr. Putin travels, although his travel is restricted, US very much in his sights, describing the Israel-Hamas war as a failure of US democracy, as well as these meetings with BRICS as he tries to sort of break the US hegemony.
Absolutely. And here, once again, we see that the Russian position on Israel-Hamas conflict is very helpful. From Iran's point of view, this is another overlapping geopolitical interest because it hits the American credibility, given the fact that the United States have positioned themselves very, very clearly on the side of Israel right from the beginning. And here we see now a new avenue for cooperation. As I said, also when it comes to the regional organizations and formats such as BRICS, here we have a very strong coordination between China and Russia. China is actually the biggest, meanwhile, the biggest partner for, let's say, both Iran and Russia. And in a sense, once again, we see how actually we have the emergence of new formats that isolate the West or try to actually hit the credibility of Western initiatives or Western diplomatic measures.
And just a final word on oil, which sort of ties in quite nicely with what you've been saying there. Saudi Arabia and Russia now calling on other oil-producing nations to reduce output and drive oil prices up. So this is in all of their interest. And, of course, President Putin trying to bolster his war chest as a result of all these sanctions that his country's under.
Yes, and it is also important from Russia's point of view because, of course, it's another way to show that Western sanctions are not working, but also the international isolation of Russia has failed. So the Middle East and specifically Iran, but also the visits to UAE and Saudi Arabia are very helpful in a critical moment for both the ongoing war against Ukraine, but also the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict to show actually that Russia has a leverage, geopolitical leverage, and it has friends and partners.
Fascinating. Thank you for guiding us through that. Velina Tchakarova from the Austrian Institute for European Security Policy.